You've probably been scrolling through endless gear lists, wondering if any of them will actually make your life easier instead of just adding another thing to learn. You want something you can set up quickly, that won't crash in the middle of a live stream, and that feels worth the price tag, not just a glossy spec sheet. The biggest fear is ending up with a piece of equipment that looks great on paper but ends up as a half-used wall mount because it's too fiddly or just doesn't fit the way you work. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The RODECaster Videos is marketed as an all-in-one solution for podcasters and video creators who want to combine audio mixing and video switching without a rack of separate boxes. That promise is appealing because, in a real studio, you often juggle a microphone, a webcam, maybe a phone call, and a screen capture all routed through separate mixers or software. The Videos tries to pull those strands together in a single, compact console that you can actually fit on a desk or a small production table. So who should consider pulling the plug on their current setup and swapping in the RODECaster Videos? If you're a solo creator who streams at 1080p, does interviews with a couple of camera angles, and wants studio-grade audio without buying a separate audio interface, this console lands right in your sweet spot. It comes with 2 podcast mic packs, which means you can start recording your voice or your guest's voice with decent quality right out of the box. No need to hunt for separate cardioids or pop filters. The integrated Revolution preamps give you up to 75 dB of gain, so you can handle anything from a whisper-quiet voiceover to a louder, more energetic podcast without constantly tweaking levels. For a small business that does product demos or a teacher who records tutorial videos, the ability to switch between up to 4 1080p 60 video sources is a practical win. Imagine you have a DSLR for the main shot, a webcam for a facecam overlay, a screen capture from your laptop, and a phone camera for a behind-the-scenes angle. With the Videos you can toggle those sources with a single press, and the audio from both mics stays balanced because the console mixes it live. That eliminates the need to stitch together separate video tracks in post-production, shaving hours off your workflow. If you're the type who live streams on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, the built-in USB streaming output is a huge convenience. Instead of routing audio through a virtual audio cable or using a separate streaming software mixer, you can feed the mixed audio and video straight into OBS or Streamlabs via the USB port. In real-world tests, the latency is low enough that you can interact with your chat without feeling a noticeable lag, which is something many creators overlook until they actually go live. Now, let's talk about the trade-offs. The first limitation you'll hit is the resolution ceiling. The console maxes out at 1080p 60, which is still the standard for most streaming platforms, but if you're aiming for 4K content or want to future-proof your setup, you'll need an additional capture device. That's an extra expense and an extra piece of gear, which somewhat undercuts the all-in-one claim. The second practical weakness is the number of video inputs. For sources cover most basic multi-camera setups, but if you want to add a graphics overlay, a dedicated teleprompter feed, or a secondary laptop for screen sharing, you'll quickly run out of ports. The console doesn't support HDMI to USB dongles natively, so you'd have to invest in a small HDMI switch before the signal even reaches the RODECaster, adding another layer of complexity. There's also a learning curve built into the console's flexibility. The layout is designed for people who want granular control. Each mic has its own gain knob, mute button, and headphone monitoring level. That's great for fine-tuning, but if you're a total beginner, the number of knobs and buttons can feel overwhelming at first. The included quick start guide gets you running in about 15 minutes, but mastering the routing matrix takes a few sessions. That's not a deal breaker, just something to keep in mind if you need to launch a live session on the same day you receive the gear. One of the most tangible strengths that shows up in everyday use is the consistency of the audio mix. Because the Revolution preamps are built into the console, you avoid the occasional hiss or grounding issues that sometimes plague cheap USB microphones or external audio interfaces that share a computer's power supply. When I tested the console for a week of daily podcast recordings, the audio level stayed solid from the first episode to the last, with only minimal gain adjustments needed when switching between the 2 bundled mics. Another practical advantage is the compact footprint. The whole unit sits on a small desk without demanding a rack mount or a dedicated table. That matters if you're working from a home office where space is at a premium. You can also mount it on a wall with the optional bracket, freeing up